I just want to run through one groundwork position. And we haven't done much groundwork for quite a long time. Feedback we got from last week's session on loyalty, the funny thing was, I wasn't too sure how well it would be received, but I've had so much feedback, particularly on private messages and so on. And I literally covered about 30% of what we wanted to cover.
Yeah.
So we'll get back to that another day, I think. Okay, but today we're looking at Kesa-Gatame. Kesa-Gatame. Kesa is a word that is specifically referring to a type of collar. You look at the Buddhist priests, and if you were to do a search and you see the outfit that the Buddhist priests wear in Japan, and often what they have is the robe comes round on one side. And so the concept of calling it Kesa-Gatame refers to how you control the opponent on one particular side, right? So that's really important. Now, people say, yeah, but that's not karate. Okay. 5 ranges. We've talked about the 5 ranges plenty of times. Kick range, punch range, headbutt, elbow range. Some call that the trapping range. The stand-up grapple and the groundwork. And the point is each range trumps the range before it. And if you want to escape from the grappling range on the ground, you have to create space, get back up, and the whole process starts again. So you look at MMA and you see guys, and it can be a struggle, and they can get taken to the ground. The best stand-up fighters in the world get trapped on the ground. So there is, you could argue one way or the other that you have answers in the stand-up range, but the reality is, unless you have answers on the ground, you are going to get stuck. Okay, now I have my faithful, this is karate. This was given to me actually by Frank Everett many years ago. So this is Masayama's book, This is Karate, and I refer to that in chapter 15. Okay, this is a beautiful book, by the way. There's not many books written better. Okay, now in chapter 15, it's called, in English, it's called Lying Down Techniques, which is a direct translation of newaza. Neru, lie down, waza, technique. Newaza, lying down techniques. When Richard Gage, the translator of this book from Japanese to English, did it, there was no translation of it at that point. They weren't using the word groundwork.
Because that would have been done, what? In the
60s.
60s, yeah. There you go.
Mid-60s, early 60s. Okay? So he used the words lying down techniques to translate newaza. In the copy itself, Sosai uses the word newaza. And Sosai describes a lot of things. And it's really important. There's a couple of things that I want to read to you from This is Karate. How to combat, he talks about judo and wrestling. There are other techniques known as newaza, which are used to pin an opponent to the floor. How to combat these with karate methods and to carry the fight to a point where the defender may overcome his attack with karate-style attack are the subjects of this section. So in other words, you take the fight back to your game. It's like Gene LaBelle, I've told the story a million times, asked me how would I beat Mike Tyson? And I scratched my head and said, I'm not sure how. And he said, badminton, tennis, any way you want, just don't try and beat him at boxing. Yeah. And then he went on to tell me a story about his experience in Japan once, which one day I'll tell. It's a very interesting story when he was training at the Kodokan. So Sosai's point is, you need to be able to extricate yourself from these horrible, horrible positions and get it back to your feet and take the game to your specialty. Okay. And he later on in the next paragraph, he says, it is by no means certain that in real life an opponent is going to employ karate methods. He may very well attack with judo or wrestling tactics. And when he does, it is necessary for the karate expert to know how to deal with him. So straight from Sosai, he says, you need to know how to deal with a wrestler or a judo player. And you see, and most of the techniques in the book, most of the techniques that have been defended against, Sosai is referring to Kesa-Gatame. Okay, so we're going to just do a short but solid session today. What we're going to do is demonstrate Kesa-Gatame and explain to you why it is so important. A shout out to Professor Lloyd Irvin from Maryland in America. And I learned from him a beautiful concept. Lloyd Irvin says, when you hit the ground, you're either top, bottom, parallel, or perpendicular in one of the 8 positions. Your objective is to get your grips, stabilize your position, and look for a submission. That flow is really valuable because non-grapplers get it round the wrong way. A karate guy will go, yeah, I'll take him to the ground and I'll try and finish him. And the next thing you know, they're falling over and they find themselves unconscious in the ambulance, wondering what happened, because they didn't do that. They didn't get their grips, stabilize the position before they continued. If there are no subs, you continue to improve. This is what Lloyd Irvin says. Continue to improve your grips, improve your stability, and continue looking for the submission. Okay, so the takeaway from that is there are fundamentally 8 positions, and it doesn't matter whether you're watching MMA or whether you're watching judo or BJJ. Every single position you can find yourself in is essentially a variation of one of those 8 positions. Okay, the rest in between those is what's called a scramble. You're scrambling from one position to the next. Okay, your objective is if you get in one of those 8 positions on the receiving end of horrible things, is to escape.
Get out.
Good.
First.
You need to know how to get out.
Survive.
Survive. That's the first step. Survival.
And when you say horrible positions, they're horrible if you don't know them and you're not proficient. But if you do know them and you're familiar with them, they're probably less horrible. Is that fair to say?
That's a really good point, actually, because one of the most important things that you can do in grappling is learn to be comfortable in very, very painful positions. So we'll demonstrate some of these positions today, but to an untrained person, and this is what we have to realize, all training is just simply designed to make you more comfortable and more proficient in these positions. Yeah. So your training is designed to allow you to be comfortable when normally you wouldn't be comfortable. Now, like John Danaher, the famous BJJ coach, says that all technique is basically like a newborn baby. It just needs nurturing. It needs nutrition. So by doing a technique once or twice, don't expect that you will have the proficiency to be able to use it realistically in a situation. You need to nurture it. It's like all champions at some stage were a little gurgling baby. Okay? So recognize that you need to develop resilience in these positions. But when you do, you become far more capable of surviving in horrible positions, which allow you then to be calm, allow you to breathe and get the shapes so that you're able to survive, to escape. Now, the reason we tune into Kesa is because of the 8 positions. Kesa-Gatame, which is the position we're going to show you today, is the only one where you can tap your opponent out from just the position. I say that with a little bit of care because some people with a good, strong, closed guard can squeeze their legs so tight that they'll crack a rib or, make it very difficult for you to breathe. But that's a rarity. The fact is, there's maybe 1 in a million people can do that, whereas people who can tap you from Kesa, they're 1 in 100 even. Okay, so it's far more common. So we're going to show you those 8 fundamental positions, and then we're going to concentrate on Kesa and why Kesa-Gatame is so important for a stand-up fighter. Not only because it's a position that you can easily understand and allow you to contain someone and control them for a long, long time, but also you don't want to get caught there because it is a hellish place to be. And today, when we do it with each other, we are going to be very gentle on each other, aren't we?
I hope so.
Big, strong man here.
Your Kesa is, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we're going to look after each other, but we're going to do it in a way that you realistically see how valuable this position is. So here we are. Shout out once again to Professor Lloyd Irvin. When you hit the mat, you're either top or bottom, parallel or perpendicular in one of the 8 positions. Those positions are, just lie down, a side control position, various shapes, okay? A knee ride position where I have my knee on my opponent. Okay, this is also quite debilitating and it allows you to attack. The mount position, which is here, you have low mount with leg entanglement, middle mount, and you even have what's called high mount here, which is probably the worst of all. Okay, you have a guard position where Mitch is containing me in his legs and controlling me. It could be closed guard, it could be an open guard, it could be a butterfly guard where his feet are in here. It can even be a half guard that one leg is in and one leg is out. These are all variations of a guard. Another position is the turtle position. So Mitch goes into turtle like this. This is a common turtle. The way we've been working on turtle, as taught by Prit Mikkelsen, a fantastic BJJ innovator in Estonia, is you want to bring the elbows back here, further back, further back, further back, further there, so that I can't get in here and you post on your head. Okay, another position is north-south, which is this position here, where I have control, whether I'm under here, pressure down, one arm over. They're all variations of north-south. Another one is the back position, where I have control here, and I take my opponent in this position. And the last but not least position, of course, is Kesa-Gatame. So I'll get Mitch to put his head there and his legs here. So this is the Kesa, and I'll show you how to get into it in one way. You can throw into it, you can throw someone straight into it, or you can transition from here. So from this position, what I like to do to get Kesa is, if Mitch is pushing his head heavy into the mat, it's very hard for me to elevate my arm. So it's hard to get the Kesa. So what I'll do is I'll take my hand here and I'll lift his head. See that? I'll lift his head up and I'll put this arm under. Now I take that arm through as much as I can. This hand that was under the head, watch it carefully. It transitions along his arm to his elbow. And then I sit through here. Traditional Kesa is I control the collar and the sleeve and I close my arm. A more modern Kesa, which I prefer, is the arm goes to the inside of my leg. And there's a very good reason for that, because 90% of successful escapes in Kesa are found by Mitch getting his elbow to the mat. So if I'm like this and Mitch is able to get his elbow to the mat, he's out. He's pretty well gone. If he can get his elbow to the mat, there, I've lost my Kesa. And I'm going to have to fight very hard to get the elbow back. Okay? So, it means when I'm in Kesa, what I do is I bring that leg up and I wrap my hand around here. So now I've locked the escape route for the elbow. It's not impossible. Nothing's impossible. But what does happen is it makes it very, very hard for him to get his elbow out. It's very, very hard. And that's without me putting the correct weight on. Now, when I say Kesa is the only position that is a submission in itself, that's if the Kesa is done properly. Okay, and I don't want to do it heavy for Mitch because it's incredibly uncomfortable and he'll never talk to me again. Okay, but if you watch, I'm just going to allow Mitch, so I'll get Mitch to say the alphabet.
A, B, C, D,
So
E.
he says the alphabet with a lot of comfort. But then watch what happens is as I gradually change my weight and my technique until I have the correct Kesa. So Mitch says the alphabet.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K.
You can hear the change in the voice.
M, N, O.
That's the change in pressure. Okay, take it off again.
Q, R, S,
He's able
T,
to, yes.
U.
I go heavy on it again.
W, X, Y, Z.
Okay, so the Kesa itself is a position in itself, but it also lends itself to a series of really horrible submissions. Now, you don't have to go for the submission. It may well be that you need to just hold someone in a safe position for a long, long time, which happened to a friend of mine. A police officer was stationed way out in the country, and he had to hold someone until police arrived from another township an hour and a quarter away. Here's a good way to do that. I'm going to slide my hand to his hand. Why do I slide my hand? Because if I go from here to here, in that process, he escapes his elbow. But I don't want to do that, so I take my waki is closed, and I slide, keep my waki closed, slide my hand along until I reach his wrist, and then slide his wrist down my leg. And that way I've always got maximal control of his arm, or maximal for the position I'm in. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Now, the other thing too is, if I slide my hand over the thigh, I have an instant wrist lock. Right there, you can see the wrist lock in Mitch's hand. The other beautiful thing is if Mitch feels that wrist lock coming along and strengthens his wrist to stop me from getting that wrist lock. Look, there's no way I'm getting the wrist lock until I bend it over my leg. So he fights it, I bend it around my leg, and you have the wrist lock again. Yes, there's that direct wrist lock, but there's also the twisty wrist lock like that. It's horrible. Okay, so I slide down. What I can do is capture his arm between my knees. I'm not trying to put an arm bar on. To do that, I slide my knee away. But I keep my knees together, so that way you're not putting your partner's arm in danger. The next thing I can do now is come in here, post under his arm, and I have this grip here. So now it's much harder for Mitch to escape. As long as my hand stays connected to my head, it's hard for him to get that out. I never say it's impossible, because there's always people who find ways out. But for Mitch, it makes it much harder to get out. Okay? And then, of course, that lends itself to opportunities, because in the process of trying to escape this arm, he gives me an arm bar. That's, you see the arm comes over, I connect. That's in Japanese, Kesa-Gatame. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu terms, they call it the Americano.
There's also the pressure you've got on me too. I mean, you're being kind now, but you could put pressure on me in this position as well. It's just
I've got the arm trapped. If I start to put pressure on like that,
for an hour of this, it'll be terrible.
It makes it much harder for Mitch to survive that. Plus, you have opportunities for single arm chokes here like that. And it's very hard for Mitch to defend because I've got his arms locked up. Okay. Another thing you can do with the arm here, which is even more debilitating, is as I slide down, he bends his arm. Instead of capturing it under the top leg, I capture it under the bottom leg. And already Mitch look, you can see his body starting to bridge. So now I've got his arm in this Americano position. But because my hip's under the shoulder, his shoulder's locked. So I can just literally just elevate my hips like that. Okay. Now, possibly the worst, most dangerous, and most debilitating submission, I think, from this. So please don't do that if you can avoid it. Is I'm going to come in here and take his arm down and put his forearm across my shin. So my shin goes between his wrist and his elbow, halfway along, and then I just push into that. They either tap or both their radius and on and snap. It's that insane form Yeah, like that. And when you do it with people, you literally watch their arm bend like a bow. Okay, so that's very dangerous, so please be careful with that. Make sure you do it under supervision with someone who can help you. Make sure you teach your partner to tap. In there, hook, and extend, and that will get that. So that's the position of Kesa-Gatame. If you've got any questions, comments, complaints, or suggestions, please, by all means, put them in the comments. Also, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like, all that sort of stuff. You know, I don't need really talk about that much. But the other thing I'd like to mention is the Patreon family that have really kept me going with these live streams over the last few years. Okay, so that's the Kesa-Gatame. Now I'd like to show you some escapes from the Kesa, but also some counters to those escapes. Okay, this is the Kesa. Now, the main thing that I need to try and do from the very start is get off my back and on my side. If Mitch elevates and puts pressure on me with my back going to the mat, you can hear the change in my voice. So I need to avoid that. So it means at all costs, I'm trying to get off my back on my side. Mitch has my elbow under control. Okay, I need to try and find ways to extricate that. That's the game. The next thing is I look at his leg position. Now you see Mitch has got one leg down here and one leg basically in line with my shoulders. That would tell me that his position creates a void somewhere else. And right now that void is opposite to where his legs are, which is up here. So in that circumstance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a strong grip here, like this. Someone with a big girth, you do an S grip like this. Someone with a much smaller girth, you can even do a nice grip like this. I like that rather than this because it's this arm that's going to be pulling. So if I can hook it here, I get that pull better. Okay? Or you can even, I prefer, actually, what do I prefer here? I think that's what I prefer right there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, because of the position of his legs, I'm going to get as much of my weight under him as I can. So I move under him as much as I can, and then I'm going to elevate his body up, up, up. Once again, as Mitch does it, I'm going to check where his legs are. If they're in line or south of my shoulders, it means the void is here. So what I do is I take that strong grip and I move as close as I can to him. And then I use my feet close and I reach as high as I can and I roll Mitch from one shoulder to the other. Up, up, up. And then about this point, he becomes weightless. And what I do is I can capture this arm, control it, come in an arm bar there or an arm there. Okay, that's the first common escape. The second common escape is this time, instead of his legs being south of my shoulders, they're north of my shoulders. So his legs are up here, which means that bridge is not going to work because he has that base. But the void now is over here. So what I do is, rather than move close to him, I'm going to bring this arm in front as I move away from him and sit up in that direction. Okay, if you're not as strong, you can use a pendulum. If you're strong, you just simply push his head, and I'll show you from the other direction, and sit up. But sometimes if your opponent is a bit stronger, you can push and use a pendulum to get momentum. Once again, this arm is vulnerable, so I keep control of it, step over, finish there, or finish here with an arm. So once again, you'll see Mitch's legs have gone north of my shoulders. So it means the bridge is not going to work anymore. So what I do is, instead of being close, I move away, as far as I can. And this arm comes in front, and I push and sit up to the side. There. This is one of the techniques demonstrated by Sosai in his book, by the way. So I sit up to the side, I can continue with impact, or as Sosai does, you can start to hit with elbows on the ground as well. So once again, when the legs are north, nothing is here. So I move away and sit up like that, capture that arm, and come back with an arm bar. They're the first two major escapes that you learn. The third one, probably the third and fourth, are more common amongst BJJ guys. And this technique, you'll see it depends on this leg. So what I'm going to do with that one is move and hook my leg over here. Now once I have that leg, I can escape out the back door. I have my hook, and that's also a very common escape. They all have their problems. Okay, a fourth escape, which is also very common amongst grapplers, BJJ grapplers, is I'm going to push the head like that. Let me push it. So this is the thing, and then you push it like that, and this leg now, he comes over, and you can lock them up. They're strong. Now push the head and hook the leg over, there like that, and you can actually hook under the neck, and you get a strong finish. And there's no doubt that is a very strong finish. Okay, so they're the main escapes. And like I said, each escape also has counters. If my legs are south of his shoulders, that tells him to bring his body close and bridge me that way. Yes. The first way, come around, move around. The first way to avoid that is this arm under the head. I simply post out there. So now when he tries to bridge me, he can't. The second way to deal with that is I literally just move my leg north and parallel to his head, and now it won't work. He can't bridge me. Okay? But you go, well, that means his legs are no longer south. So he moves away, and as he moves away now, I just move my leg back once again and post back into him. So it's my leg and frame against his arm, and it's much harder. The third one against someone who hooks their leg over your leg like that is I literally now just change, and you see Mitch now. That's not fun. I'm putting his head on his knee, so I just square up. I can even put my hands here, and you're severely compressing the spine. The next one is that when they bring their arm in front of your face, push your head back and hook your head with their leg, okay? To prevent that one, I simply position my legs, and as his arm comes in front, I elevate his head. With his head elevated, it's very hard for him now. Bring your leg in front of my face. He can't, because he can't hyper flex his torso. So all I do is I bring the head up there. If you want, you can even come to gable grip, and that in itself becomes a submission. Okay? So they're the fundamental counters. There is another counter to the first one. The most common one is the bridge escape, and my wrestling coach, Rico Ciparelli, showed me a profoundly powerful counter to that too, which I call the sniper. So when my legs are here and Mitch turns to bridge me, I simply flip into the sniper position and put all my pressure on Mitch, and then I can maintain that when I come back. And what happens is it's on the jaw and everything. It's on twice as hard as it was before. Position before submission. There you go. That's so true. And that's when Professor Lloyd Irvin says, you're either top, bottom, parallel, perpendicular, one of the 8 positions. Your objective is to get your grips and stabilize your position. Then look for submission. And what Professor Adam Qayyum says there, position before submission. Never make the mistake of looking for the submission before you have dominant control of your position. And sometimes even to the point where you can be 90% into a submission and your position gets compromised, you're better off abandoning the submission to re-establish control of your position. Frederick, this is great. Both Kesa and katagatame are two big favorites. Okay, katagatame, I'm going to show you katagatame. Oh, Rob, good to see you, and Rochelle. Okay, Frederick, who's a judo black belt, katagatame is a nice shoulder lock choke. I'm going to show you a really good variation of that.
That where the escapes happen, I'm only at a very raw beginner level. So when the escapes happen, in this situation, I can consciously know what to do. But in the heat of the moment, that scramble, like move your legs up, down, back, it's such a scramble that can happen. And I think you just need a lot of experience doing this time on the mat to get used to it. I don't think you can just watch it through videos. You've got to experience it.
Yeah, you have to experience the pressure and the weight. And that's a good point, is you have to drill it with the objective of seeking an understanding of the movement. Don't just drill it over and over with the objective of doing a number of reps. You have to drill it over and over with a constantly increasing level of resistance.
Yeah. And to get that feel, because that you can't, I mean, your feel is just unbelievable.
Yeah, so you just get used to making it worse and worse for your partner. Yeah.
And somehow stay friends.
Yeah. Katagatame, katagatame literally means a shoulder lock. It's a beautiful position. In fact, I'll just show you very briefly, but we won't go into the detail because there's a lot of detail involved in that as well, which means there's variations of it. I'll show you a couple of variations of the katagatame. So head here, feet there. Katagatame works, I can do it from Kesa from here. And what I do is, and this is the way I do it, Frederick Sensei Frederick may have a different way, but I like to come here and gather in the armpit and hook my hand like that in the armpit. And that pulls his head towards his shoulder for a start. Then the next thing I do is I flex my bicep into his neck. And trust me, I don't have a bicep because I've lost the long head. So I can do it, anyone can do it. Then what I do is I slide my hand back to here and bring it in front, and I bring my head this side. Now, this is where it varies. Some people will then take the grip here and drop the head down and squeeze in like that to get the same. I find that as guys get better and more comfortable in this uncomfortable position, that becomes harder to do. So what I do is I come in and I'll hook under the armpit and I'll try to trap his neck between his bicep, which is twice the size of mine, and my bicep. Okay, so I flex, and then this hand, instead of gripping, pushes. So watch, flex, there, I'm already putting pressure on, and then this hand now pushes in like that. And there's a lot of pressure there, okay? And I have a really nice transition from this, Frederick, you might enjoy. I know Mitch won't, but if this doesn't work, and usually it does, okay? Often what I'll do is I'll bring my hand now under here and grab my own elbow. Then I'll go to mount, and then I'll squeeze and smother. So there you have it, guys. That's Kesa-Gatame, one of the major 8 positions. And as Lloyd Irvin says, when you hit the mat, you're either top, bottom, parallel, perpendicular, one of the 8 positions. Your objective is to get your grips, stabilize your position, and then seek the submission. Don't get them around the other way. Don't think that because you have the choke, it's going to work, because if you lose your balance, you have nothing. Okay? Kesa-Gatame. Kesa-Gatame. Scarf hold, because of the scarf around the Buddhist neck. That's where it gets its name from. And if you are a karate guy who finds yourself on the mat, it's a terrible place to be, but a great place to get them. And I'll show you one simple way to get them down into that position. I like this straight out of Pinan 3. So it's in Pinan 3 position, front kick. You know, in Pinan 3, we do this. Okay? a good bunkai application. Just come a little forward. Yeah, no, we're stuck with space, but I just want to show you the way I do it is I'll use that front hip, and then I'll come in, I'll go past. Now look, I'll show you from the other side as well, but I'll take the elbow and the head, and I'll turn and I'll finish straight in Kesa. There, front hip, drive. I come in and look, I'm sagging my hips. Sag my hips, bang. And then we finish up in Kesa position. A good way to practice that for safety is we do it off our knees with our hips high. And that way you don't have the impact of going down. Okay, so you can just pretend you've done the front kick, and then I come in, and I hit, and I turn 90 degrees, and then I keep turning 180. So I sag, pull here, you can see because we're much closer to the ground, the danger of impact is much lower, right? And this hand, and I literally turn 360 degrees. Look, I'm facing that way. I come, and I'm facing that way again. Okay, so watch when we do it. I start here, control the elbow or the wrist, and then I hit here. Boom, I'm at 90, I'm at 180, 270, 360 in. Once again, we're here, and remember, we're doing it on our knees for safety. I'm not suggesting you'd actually do it from here. Hand slides, 90 degrees. Pulling, pushing. 180, 270, and all the way around in Kesa-Gatame. Okay, so that's a very easy takedown from Pinan 3 into Kesa-Gatame. There you go. Us. Thanks, guys. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any further comments, please leave a message and I'll answer it. If you leave a message underneath, I always try to get back to you. I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, Patreon, I'm thinking, I've got advertising in my YouTube channel. So if you watch my YouTube, sometimes there'll be ads. I'm actually thinking of turning all the ads off because I know how much it annoys me. So I want to cut the ads off. But that means the only way that I can do anything is if I get Patreon. So please go and have a look at my Patreon site. The link is down below. Have a look, and if you think you'd like to contribute towards what I'm doing, by all means become one of the Patreon family. Thanks everyone, and look forward to seeing you next week. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
See ya.